Okay, well, good evening from the United Kingdom, ladies and gents. I hope you're all doing well. Today is one of these special streams that only comes up once in a while, which is really where my expertise comes in, which is macro economics. Today, we're not going to be talking global macroeconomics. We're going to be talking more local and specific to the UK economy. So I'm in my blue velvet jacket today. I've dressed for the occasion with my French cuffs to get into the mood of the Tory party and all of their... this is not going to be a positive one, by the way. So let me just say first and foremost that this is not a political video or stance. I'm not going to be talking anything about politics. I really don't care who is giving the budget, whether it's the Tories, the Labour Party, the Green Party, whoever it is, it makes no difference. I look at it completely unbiased and talk about it purely from an economic, financial point of view. So, if you haven't seen my videos before, my name's Neil McCoy-Ward, and this is the sort of stuff I talk about. So let's get started then. And I'm going to start with somewhat of a summary, and then I'm going to go through some of the budget that you won't see on the BBC. In fact, a lot of the stuff I talk about, you won't see on the BBC or ITV News and things like that. So some of this stuff is bizarre. These are the things that aren't on the TV or the radio. Some of the things that go into the budget, absolutely, it's just you're going to be left scratching your head with some of this stuff. So I'll talk about some of that as well. So let me just say first and foremost, I was somewhat surprised by the budget today. And here's why. We are in economic turmoil right now. And yet there was nothing for the middle class family. You know, the people who actually go out and work and do all the, the work and create the GDP and create the money, the currency that we all have, pay the taxes, etc. And yet there was nothing for the middle class on this budget at all. Not a single thing. And yet the banks have got all these tax breaks. All the big businesses, the huge companies and the tech companies that pay almost no tax anyway, have got tax breaks. It just baffles my mind. I don't get it. I really don't get it. So what was missing then first and foremost was they talk about all these rises with inflation and we're going to help everyone. Well, what about the pensioners? People's pension. So these are the most vulnerable people in society. There was nothing for the pensioners, which I think is a little bit disgraceful, actually. These are the people that have worked their whole life, paid into the system. And yet, with the rising inflation, and by the way, this is one reason that governments around the world don't give the true statistics on inflation, because a lot of pensions are linked to inflation. So if they were told the true figures on inflation, where they say, oh yeah, well, inflation is a 3%, but that doesn't include rent, gas, electric, fuel, food. They cut everything out. If they told the true figure, they'd have to raise certain pensions and things like that. So there was no increase for pensioners, which is bizarre, absolutely bizarre, because it's proven through studies and statistics that there is an increase in death rate for pensioners during the winter when fuel costs go up, or when their pension doesn't rise with inflation. It's documented, it's studied, so that's very disappointing. Why would they want to increase the death rate on pensioners? It makes no sense. That's the first thing. Number two, nothing to assist with increasing household bills and fuel costs at all for people. And there was a very simple thing they could have done, which was proposed, and that was a 5% VAT aspect of it. They didn't do it. It wouldn't have cost that much, and yet they just completely ignored it. Makes no sense. Nothing to assist with increasing food costs on the most vulnerable households and families. Nothing to help with the hardship from the national insurance increase, which of course is going to fund the NHS. Of course, they don't talk about why the NHS is overwhelmed. That is never talked about. And all the strain on the facilities, where's that coming from? We won't go into that. That's called controversial topics, which we're not supposed to discuss. So there's all these things going on. No additional VAT measures to help with rising inflation across essential goods and services. You've got to ask yourself, what's going on here? Why was the whole thing, about the Build Back Better? But then you start looking into the Build Back Better. That's actually not the UK government's plan. That plan comes from the World Economic Forum. That's why you're seeing this Build Back Better. And if you actually compare them, which no one does, but I've done, across different countries, you'll see it's actually very similar. It's all coming from the World Economic Forum. Pretty disturbing. Private organization, institution, sending out all of these plans. So, of course, if you're following someone else's plans, there really isn't room to help the middle class and the pensioners when you have that sort of budget restraint. This was funny. So Rishi Sunak, who is the Chancellor of the Exchequer of the UK, starts his budget speech declaring growth up, jobs up, debt down. Well, firstly, no, growth isn't up. Currency printing is up. Quantitative easing, which is fake and manipulation of the currency supply and GDP, is up via the sale of treasury bonds, more treasury bonds via the central bank, the Bank of England, which then you get swaps, liquidity into the commercial banks, which then hits the economy. And as I said, inflation is a monetary phenomenon. It is created by governments and central banks. It's not created by the economy. Central banks and governments create inflation. And they create inflation sometimes deliberately, sometimes accidentally. But either way, it's incompetence, however it comes about. It's not a coincidence, by the way, inflation. It pays off their debts, you see. It's worth, depending on what country you're watching from as well, it's worth looking into who actually owns the central bank of your country, because a lot of them are owned by private individuals and shareholders. Something you need to be aware of when you're actually analyzing all of this. So is growth up? No. Are jobs up? Yes and no. So certain sectors' jobs are up, but of course we're having this huge, great resignation, as it was coined the term. So there's a lot of jobs that they simply can't fill at the moment. There's a lot of problems with these jobs because the unemployment benefits were too great, and it had a lot of people say, you know what, I'm going to stay off. I'm concerned about COVID and health scares at the moment. I'm going to stay off work because I'm getting all these benefits anyway. Now, a lot of these benefits actually ended at the end of September. So this is the first month now, October, where they haven't been in play. But I guarantee you some people will let this run for 3 or 4 months before they actually make that decision to go back to work, especially going into a winter or a dark winter, as the politicians call it. I think a lot of people are going to, especially those who went back home to stay with parents, staying with friends, etc., they're not desperate to make these moves right now. So I don't think we're going to see too much of a change in the job market for a little while yet. I think this is going to continue with the job problems. Debt down? Well, no, debt is not down. Let me go to my shared screen a moment and show you what they don't show you in these debates and things. So let's get on to this. Okay, so here we go. The UK national debt rate is growing at over £5,000 per second. So it's almost $2.6 trillion. I mean, this is such a huge number that most people can't even comprehend what $1 trillion looks like. And this is 41,000, not 41 pounds, by the way, 41,000 per citizen. So this includes if you've just had a baby that's 2 days old, that baby owes £41,500 just out of the womb. It's crazy. Debt per taxpayer then, £71,000 is what we owe. It's unbelievable. Let's go to the government statistics themselves then. And they're talking about, 70, 80% debt level of GDP. No, it's bizarre when they talk about these numbers, because all you have to do is go onto the Office of National Statistics, and here's the numbers for themselves. Here it is right here. This is not 70, 80% of GDP. It's over 100% of GDP. Let me give you an example to put this into perspective then. Let's say that your household earns £40,000 per year. Both parents are working, children in the household. You're earning £40,000 a year, but you're spending £45,000 per year. Well, what does that mean? It means you have to borrow the money. You're in debt. You're not moving forward. You're moving forward, but with a debt every single month. So this is what the deficit does. And we're over 100% of GDP now. And I think it's a lot worse than this, because I think what they've done is when they've created all the new currency and stimulus, they've actually included that because, of course, they have to. It's spent by the people who receive it. So it's going to have to go into the GDP figures. So I don't even think this is true, these GDP figures. I think it's a lot worse because of the manipulation with the currency supply. So this hasn't been this bad. Look at 1975, and we could go back further. So this is the worst it's been in a long time. So are they really cutting back on debt? The answer is no. They're actually increasing the debt by 150 billion with a B pounds over the next 3 to 4 years. So it started off with a lie, which was really disappointing for me because I wanted to believe in Rishi. I wanted to believe he was going to do the right thing, but it started with a lie and then it ended with a load of rhetoric, which we'll talk about because it was very weird. I think a psychologist probably put that spiel together. Let's have a look then at the next thing, which is fuel duty, which I was going to come on to later, but let me just talk about it while we're on the shared screen. So there was this big thing about, oh, my cup's making loads of noise here. There was this big thing about, where's the fuel duty? Let me get this here. Okay. They got really excited about the fuel duty, saying, we're saving you 1,000, and I quote, £1,900 per year. And it was a big celebration. They're doing all that. Well, no. Let me explain why. The fuel duty was proposed for 2022. But then they decided not to enact the fuel duty cost because fuel is going up so rapidly. It would have been a slap in the face to people to actually do that. So that was a lie. They're not saving you £1,900 because it was never enacted in the first place. So how could you save money on something that you didn't have to pay in the first place? Do you get what I'm saying here? This is not true. They're not saving you all of this money. Another thing most people don't realize about the fuel duty is 58 pence, okay, out of every litre. They then add, here it is here, they add 20% sales tax, VAT, on top of the fuel. So actually you're paying 70p out of every £1.35 at the moment. But remember, it was £1. So you were paying 70% out of every pound was tax. I mean, it's crazy. So now it's just over 50% is actually tax. So that was another point that did not make any sense. Another very controversial point here, which we'll cover briefly, is the humanitarian aid. So there's a lot of people, this is a topic you've got to be very careful about. And, I sit very neutral on this topic, actually. So this has increased to 0.7% of GDP, which equates to as much as £15 billion. So let me explain why this is so controversial at the moment. A lot of people and politicians and other people, it really depends, it varies, are saying that this money should be cut back, not increased, because it's been an increase this year. It should be cut back and used for our own people, the soldiers and the servicemen and women that are on the streets, that are homeless, tackling a lot of poverty in this country where certain families live below the breadline, as it's known. So this is why it's so controversial, because a lot of the money, and actually got a breakdown of it. It was very difficult to find a lot of this, but a breakdown of this. The top recipients are Pakistan, Syria, Ethiopia, Nigeria, Afghanistan, again, controversial topic at the moment, Tanzania, Jordan, South Sudan, Sierra Leone, and Somalia. There's also a lot of other countries it goes to, and the United Kingdom is ranked 5th in the world for their contribution. Actually, now that this is even a little higher, we may even increase in the rankings. So that is that point. Let's see if there was another point I wanted to bring up. Okay, yeah, last point, and then we'll go off the screen share here. If you've never seen how the government raises income then, this is where the bulk of it comes from. Income tax, VAT, which is one of the highest in the world, our VAT rate, 20%. National insurance, which has just gone up as well. Corporation tax, excise duties, council tax, business rates, other taxes, and other non-taxes. So that is where the funding comes from. Let's go back to the main camera now then. Okay, another very negative and very strange point that came up then was the budget was leaked to the press. I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this, but the budget this year is it's supposed to be so secretive, but it was actually leaked to the press. And of course, there's not going to be an investigation. No one knows. Oh, it's water under the bridge. Yeah, I don't really buy that. So there was fury in the House of Commons, and they said the whole reason why you never leak the budget early is so that the politicians, the MPs, can actually debate it. So it's important, it's part of the whole process to debate it, discuss what the money is being spent on. And they're saying it's very, very immoral, so that they couldn't even debate it. This year's budget was just announced, and that's that. There's nothing more to it. I think that's a real shame. I think it sounds a little bit suspicious to me. You know, is that just another one of these coincidences to add to the thousands that have already come about? Most likely. Okay, a couple of my points then that wasn't talked about in any of the press. So they want to create a nation of savers in the United Kingdom. Well, I thought, well, instantly then they're going to increase the ISA rate, which is your individual savings account where you don't pay tax on what you save. It's so funny. You've already paid tax on your money, but then when you want to save it, they want to tax you again. Crazy. Just more ways to make money. But so you would assume then they're not going to increase the tax. They're going to increase the rate that you can save from the £20,000. No, it's going to remain the same. So they want to create a nation of savers that are getting 0.1% interest rate, which is classed as a deposit into the bank and a loan agreement anyway, under bail-in law, but they want to increase the savings rate. No, they don't. Look at this logically. They don't want to increase the savings rate. If they wanted to, they would have said, we're increasing your personal, savings that you can not pay tax on to £50,000 per year. That's what they would have done. They don't want to increase the saving rate. They don't want to turn the UK into a nation of savers. They want to continue on with the quantitative easing and the easy money. Next then, Queen's birthday. Here's one you won't be aware of. This also wasn't discussed. Within the budget is a £28 million budget for the Queen's birthday celebrations in 2022. Is that really a good use of taxpayers' money? The royal family, one of the wealthiest families in the world, and yet the taxpayers, who are broke and massively in debt, over 105% of GDP, are paying for the Queen's birthday celebrations. That makes no sense. It is absurd and an insult, I would say, to the British public to be paying for the Queen's birthday celebrations. That's another one that came up. We're already overstretched, the taxpayers are overstretched, and yet we're paying for that. Ridiculous. Banks have obviously sort of lobbied the government for tax breaks. So guess what? The banks are all getting tax breaks this year. The people aren't getting tax breaks. In fact, we're getting tax increases, but yet the banks are getting tax breaks. The big companies are getting tax breaks. It's disgraceful. It really is. Crime. Now, this was an interesting one. 20,000 new police officers are going to be required in the next few years. Why? That's the question. I'm not looking at these things on face value. I'm asking why. If the laws were more harsh on a lot of the crimes that take place, you wouldn't need 20,000 more police officers. This is common sense psychology. If you make the laws really, really lax, people are going to commit more crime. There's going to be more theft, more burglary, more assault, and robbings and things like that. It's obvious. I mean, this is common sense, and I'm not even a politician or a police officer or a psychologist. It's obvious to me. You make the laws more loose, and people are going to just break the law more often. Why spend all this money on 20,000 more police officers unless there's something else going on? Why might they need more police officers? in the near future? That's another question to start asking yourself. Extra 2.2 billion for courts. Again, this is within the same category here. Prisons and probation services, including 500 million to reduce the backlog. 3.8 billion for largest prison building program in a generation. That again is a bit suspicious to me. 3.8 billion for new prisons to hold more people. Drop me a comment. What do you think about that? Drop a comment below. Drop it into the stream here. I'm pretty sure you guys, you're pretty smart people. You know what's going on. UK growth revised upwards from 4% to 6.5%. I've already covered that. Is it true? Not really. Nothing being done about inflation. In fact, I thought it was insulting it wasn't even covered. So there's nothing being done about inflation at all. Okay, business rates. No change. Rishi Sunak said £25 billion is simply too much to give up. And then he went on to say, but what we're doing is this. And he talks about all these benefits for businesses to improve their businesses and all these grants and things like that. He's missed the point. If you think about, say, retail, the high street, things like that, these people, the businesses that are in there, don't own the building. So he's saying, oh, we're doing all this and this is going to help you out. No, it's not. It's going to help out the landlord of that building. Small business owners do not own their premises. These shops on the high streets and all of that, they don't. There was very little offered. I think there was a 50% discount for retail and the leisure industry for this year. I don't think this is going to be enough, guys. I'm just being honest with you here. I think we're going to continue to see more business closures. And yes, we're seeing a lot of openings at the moment, but do the study on this like I have. A lot of them are people that are trying out for the first time their hand in business. So that's what they're doing. They're new entrepreneurs seeing an opportunity to move into the market. Well, they're going to be very stretched because they're competing with these huge franchises and big chains and big conglomerates. That's who they're competing with. So I don't think a lot of the new entrepreneurs realize what they're letting themselves in for in comparison to this new competition versus a reduced public spending output as well. So I think this is slightly worrying. Alcohol duties. Again, watch the clip on this if you've got time to go back through it. This was really weird, bizarre, and immature. So they went, okay, alcohol duties, and they all got excited and they were going, way, and they were like nudging each other, and even Boris Johnson was getting involved, the Prime Minister, and then one of them was like, and they were laughing. And I just think, these are the MPs, these are the people meant to lead us, and they're making jokes like they're on a school playground about, you know, they're reducing the a £3 billion cut to alcohol. Well, alcohol duties. We'll take that 3 billion and give it to people who, the working class families, the people with children who are struggling right now with rising energy, rising food. I just think it's really inappropriate. I really did. I didn't think that was appropriate at all. Minimum living, so the living wage, minimum wage, increased from £8.91 per hour to £9.50 per hour. I think this is fair. This is fair in terms of inflation, so that this will help to offset for those people who are on the minimum wage, to offset a lot of the inflation. However, look, I've just got to tell you from an economic point of view as well. Again, there is no emotion attached to what I'm about to say. Okay, I believe that minimum wage should be higher. I do. And at the same time, you've got to look at it from the side of the employer. So I look at it from both sides. The business owners, I think, will do this. They're going to increase their rate of artificial intelligence, increase their rate of robotics and automation. They're going to load more work onto the employees, and they're probably going to cut some of their staff. Because I speak to a lot of business owners on a day-to-day basis. I mentor business owners. I have coaching program. I have all these things. This is what I think is going to happen. In fact, I was only speaking to someone earlier in the week that I was mentoring yesterday on Monday, who is a small business owner, has about a dozen employees. And they were saying if the minimum wage goes up, they're going to have to make cutbacks of 1 to 2 staff members because their wage bill is already too high. And they were talking about some of the things that they're going to do to offset that. And I think it's only logical if you're a business owner that you're going to make these small cutbacks, because the business owners are overstretched as well. I'm not talking about these huge tech companies, Amazon and Apple and all this. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your small business owner that employs a dozen staff or less. These people are stretched to the limit. They're in debt to their eyeballs. The government should have helped them out. I'm not saying they should help out the big business owners, because I don't think they should. But at the same time, they've now increased the corporation tax from 19% to 25%. I think, again, you're going to have the same effect. I just want to be clear on this, because people get upset when I say these things and they say, you should just support minimum wage of £12 and £15 and don't even think about the business. But guys, you have to think about the business, because they're the ones that are going to pay that wage. You've got to look at it from their point of view and start asking questions and doing studies, because you're going to do more harm than good if you push them into automation really quickly. But to be really clear, I support higher minimum wage. I do. I think the minimum wage in the UK has not kept pace with what it should be for people that have families to support. It's way, way too low. Okay, now that was the point I really wanted to get out of the way, because it is a controversial point. So when I did the math on this then, £6 billion was taken away from the public and roughly £2 billion was given back. So we have a net deficit there of about £4 billion. So this is really, here's my comment that I wrote down. It is a slap in the face by giving a deduction to huge companies who pay little tax anyway, while increasing the corporation tax on the average UK business from 19 to 25%. Because what I'm saying here is a lot of these big tech companies, they don't pay any tax in the UK anyway, or they pay very little tax. They have lower rates. They have tax havens and offices in other places. But yet the UK businesses who you should support, these are the ones that are getting hit the hardest. It's not right. This great new funding for the NHS, smoke and mirrors, because they've just announced an increase in our national insurance contributions, which are already huge. I won't even tell you how much I pay in national insurance. I think you'd be absolutely shocked. As a higher rate taxpayer, 60% of my income goes out, which is a lot. It really is a lot. And people say, yeah, but Neil, you earn a lot, so you can pay more. Yeah, I think that's fair that I pay more, but 60% or close to is way too high. It disincentivizes you from doing more work. People say you should stream every day and do YouTube. What's the point? I lose so much in taxes. I'd rather have the time personally. Okay, and let me give you an example. I can give you a dozen examples here, but let me just give you a short one. So as you know, I was a soldier. I had a lot of injuries, serious injuries. I had shoulder surgery eventually private because it was impossible on the NHS. Had shoulder surgery. Well, it's always played up. I've always been to see physios and things like that. And I just thought, joining this new doctor's surgery in the last couple of weeks, I would actually ask them, hey, can I get a referral? Can I get physio and things like that? And this is what made me laugh. They said, yes, you can have a physio appointment. And I said, great. It's over the phone. They give you a physio appointment for 15 minutes over the phone where they tell you about stretches and exercise. And I'm like, sorry, is this a joke? This is ridiculous. So then I insisted on a referral because, yes, I can go and pay for private easily, not a problem. But I'm paying so much into the NHS, I feel like I should get something back from it. Well, guess what they said? Yes, you can come in, but you're probably not going to get any physical physiotherapy. They'll give you exercises and plans to take away. And I said, okay, well, how long? 102 days for the next appointment. 102 days. This is why the NHS has got so many problems. It's crazy. So I just said, forget it. Don't even worry about it. I'm just going to go private, as I do with all my medical these days. Okay. Anyway, rant over. Let's get on to the next point. But I feel for all the pensioners, the people who have a lot of medical problems right now. Honestly, pray for you guys. I feel for you guys. It's not right. It's not fair. And I think we all know someone that's affected by this. If not you, a parent, a grandparent, a relative, friend, whoever, it's not right. It really isn't. Road transport, 21 billion investment into roads, 2.6 billion for upgrades of roads, 5 billion for road maintenance. Okay, so that's a good thing. I'm happy to see that. Do they really need to spend that much money though? I mean, that is a lot of money for roads, 21 billion. Someone's doing well from that. But this is the other thing. The government never does tender properly. Tender is where you actually put it out to lots of different companies and you negotiate and you try and get the best rate. The government doesn't do this. I know from when I was consulting for a company and we put a tender into the government, they just accepted it like that. And I was shocked because they actually put the prices about 25-30% over so that there could be some negotiation. No, the government just accepted it straight away. Crazy, absolute crazy that they would do something like that because it's not their money. It's taxpayer money, so they don't care. Rail, 46 billion pound, sorry, I keep saying dollar, but I mean pound investment into railways, 5.7 billion pounds for London-style transport settlements. So if you are a homeowner in Manchester, Liverpool, Tees Valley, South Yorkshire, West Midlands, etc., you're probably going to see this benefit you personally in these areas. Wherever you get new investment, large investment, transport links, better schools, things like that, it always tends to work in favor of your property prices and the like. So that's good for you. Okay, let me tell you what I'd have done differently then. A couple of notes. Number one, I'd have definitely invested a ton more money into research and development. I'd have focused heavily on green energy as well. And the reason I would do that is because then you would make the UK a leader in green energy. See, what they've really announced is nowhere near enough. And I'm not talking about it from the point of view of climate change. I'm talking about it from the point of view of jobs and leading the way in the world. Because if you lead the way in the world with this, other countries, which we know they've already set out their targets, are going to come to you, the UK, and say, look, you've developed this technology, you've already put the investment in, you figured it out, we want to buy it from you because we haven't invested into it. We want to buy it from you. And then you're going to get all these people, the smartest minds in the world, coming into the UK to work in the UK. Giving these visas, so legal, not illegal immigration, legal immigration into the UK for all of these things. That's what I would have done first and foremost, would have invested heavily into this, as well as tech, future technology, to lead the way in all of these industries. That is where they should have invested the most. Yeah, okay, fine, invest in some roads and infrastructure, but really you're not going to get a big payback from that. But if you invest and make it as an actual investment, and investment means you get a payback, if you invest into these sectors, you're going to make your money back and more. See, that's the thing they're not realizing. There just wasn't enough budget accounted for this sort of thing. So that was the first mistake they made. I mean, straight away, £5 billion is what they used to pay to the European Union. Well, because of Brexit, not there anymore, you could pull that money. You could put that into research and development, new jobs creation. In terms of the foreign aid budget, I want to be really clear on this so there's no misunderstanding. There is a large portion of that budget, of that £15 billion that goes to the United Nations. And it's a little bit like, in my opinion, again, this is just my personal opinion, when you give to a charity, like I give to a lot of charities, but a few years ago, I just cut out loads of them because I found out one of them in particular, only 7% of that money actually went to people on the ground. And I was really disgusted by that the majority of it was eaten up by administration costs and staff costs, and the CEO was getting £500,000 salary and all of this absurdity. So straight away, I would reduce the foreign aid budget to the United Nations with their fancy offices and all their executives and all their fancy cars and jets and all that. I would reduce it and with some stipulations that I will put that money back in when you stop doing all this glamorous stuff and spending all this money on wastage. So I would have reduced it by a good amount and put that money into the UK as well, put it into the homelessness crisis, our veterans on the streets, things like that. Renewable energy, I'd have invested more into renewable energy. But overall, here's what another note. They should be paying down the debt, not spending more. This is what governments do, though. They want to try and appease the people, which they haven't with this one, in my opinion. But they also want to appease their backers, all the people that contribute to their campaign and keep them in power, the big banks, the big tech companies, and all of this. So they're spending more, and then they're going to pass it on to the next government. It's kicking the can down the road. Never ends. Until eventually you get where a lot of the spending is going. Where's it going? It's going on the debt, to service the debt. Who owns the debt? Ask yourself that question. Who are we paying the money to service the debt, the interest payments? Look into that. It'll be an interesting one for you. Yeah, they should have helped the people as well. That would have been the honorable thing to do, to help the people, help the middle class, help the people who are the poorest in society, helping here, helping with education, not having these huge rebates and grants for private education. These private schools, look, I'm not talking against them or anything like that. Please don't get me wrong. But they have huge budgets, huge income. I've worked with a lot of private schools, have done for years. I won't say in what capacity, but I consult for a lot of different places and organizations. And a lot of the time they don't need it. Not all the time, but a lot of the time they just don't need these extra grants and fundings. So do you really need to keep giving all these grants there when there's certain public schools, and it depends on the area, that need more funding, not cutting funding to schools? So I said I was going to talk about the psychobabble at the end, and the persuasion tactics and the rhetoric and the propaganda. I'm just going to quote a few things that Rishi Sunak said. And he said, look, as the government, we're here to take a step back. We're not here to, oversee and solve all the problems of the people. We're supposed to take a back seat. That's what we're supposed to do as the government. Smaller government, reduce the government. And, the people really are in power, and all the here, yay, yes, yes. Not clapping, but cheering. That's not true at all. That isn't what they want to do. If that were true, they wouldn't have increased the budgets to every single government agency and department. They wouldn't. Why do they need £15 billion for government? Let me put that into perspective. If you think how far £1 million goes a long way. Well, that's 15. So 15 billion is 15,000 million pounds. Imagine what you can do with 100 million, 1,000 million. They've got 15,000 million pounds. That is their budget, the government budget. Where is all that money going? Again, it's too much to go into on this stream, but look into it. I think you'll be disappointed with where some of this money goes. But at least they're not doing the gold toilet seats and all of that sort of ludicrous thing, saying, oh, we've got this budget, we've got to spend it by the 1st of April. Oh, let's just rip out all of this that we've just had done a year ago and put new stuff in because we've got the money. Wastage, absolute wastage, and they should be held to account. I know there's a lot of petitions going around at the moment for certain things, but I've said this a lot. Remember when we did the petition to lower the MPs' wages by 20%, so the members of parliament, the politicians' wages by 20%, in line with furlough, where all the people were only getting 80% of their wages. Passed 100,000 signatures, has to be debated. And what did they say? No, we're not doing that. We're not reducing our wages by 20%. No. But why not? We're just not. And that's that. So all the people saying, oh, sign this petition, Neil, and help to get it going. It's not going to make any difference. if these petitions were going to make any difference, they made a difference over the last year and a half when economists, world-leading economists, were coming out and saying certain policies were not going to help and would actually hinder the economy, and we shouldn't do certain things. The government aren't interested in listening to what we have to say anymore. I'm sorry to tell you that, but they're just not. And this budget really amplifies that and proves it. There was nothing for the working class, the poorest in society. It really just benefited the big banks, the big tech companies, the richest in society. So I'm sorry to say that, but that is how I see it. And I think if this keeps on going on this way, it's only a matter of time until people start to get really upset. And this is just basic psychology and history. Believe me, I've studied it all. If you keep going down this same path where people get poorer, more stretch, more inflation, standard of living goes down, while they're looking at the richest people in society and the politicians and all the wealthy elite, and they keep seeing these people just getting richer and richer and richer, it's a ticking time bomb. Eventually, something bad is going to happen there. They've got to listen. I don't know why they're not. They've got to listen to this. They've got to listen to people who know about this stuff, historians, economists, people who have studied it. Otherwise, we're going to be in for some bad times ahead. Ladies and gents, thank you. I know this was a long stream, but thank you for bearing with me. Please click the like button if you haven't already. Why not subscribe if you're not a regular viewer of this channel? But thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless you and your families, and I will see you next time with your upcoming video. Take care.